Hi everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. Welcome to Do You Believe on Paranormal Zone TV. I am your host, and guess who I have with me? Donna Raymond, my former co-host.
Yay.
Hey Dee, thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
Oh my God, it's been a couple years. I'm so excited to have you on the show. It's like old times. And I'm sure all of you remember Dee. Anyway, tonight also joining us is Sheila Sharp, who is the surviving daughter of the Keddie Resort Murders. And our topic tonight is the Keddie Resort Murders. And so what I'd like to start with is about the town. Keddie was not actually a town. It was more like a resort community. It had 31 cabins, and it was nestled in the Sierra foothills in an isolated area near Quincy. Keddie was named for the surveyor Arthur Walter Keddie, who surveyed the railroad that cut through the mountains in Plumas County in the early 1900s.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Interesting.
Everyone came to Keddie to eat at the Keddie restaurant. It was known for its good food, and people came from as far as San Francisco to come up there. Soon the visitors stopped coming to Keddie. Instead of getting off at Keddie, the Pacific Railroad went through, and people stopped coming, and they started just going straight through up to Reno, which makes sense. And because of that, the resort community went downhill, and there it eventually turned into affordable housing for renters. Now, the Sharp family were in this idyllic little resort town, but it was surrounded by child molesters, drug runners, professional criminals, corrupt cops, and businessmen, homeless people, and at least one known serial killer.
Oh my God, do you know who that was? The serial killer?
Well, unless they're talking about the Keddie Resort Murders.
Oh, okay.
That could be.
Oh my goodness.
Now, also, Donna and I, we did take a trip up to Keddie in October 24th of 2009. And that's where we met Sheila. And we also met her cousin, her then husband, which was Richard Meeks, and Josh Hancock, who had at that time had made a documentary on the Keddie Resort Murders. And Donna, who was a paranormal sensitive, was able to, I guess, did you speak through Sue?
She was there, and I was just relaying the information that she was giving me on, why she was still there. And there were three little, I'm assuming three children behind her. Three, if I remember right. It's been a while, but she was there, and then, if I remember right, behind her.
And I remember you telling Sheila that her mother's name was Glenna, but she was also known as Sue, and you had picked up on that. Mm-hmm. But Sue did not. She had a message for. Do you remember the message she had?
That she was fine, and that she wanted. She didn't want Sheila to come back again and to live her life, and don't live in the past of what happened.
Yeah, and that she
wanted
her
strong.
Right to stay away from Keddie. There was no reason for her to come back there anymore.
No.
Now also, oh God, we also went into that cabin, Marty's cabin.
Okay.
Was it 26?
I don't remember, but I remember it was up from where we were. Yeah. And there was the guy was in there.
Right, and you had communication with him.
Right, which was really interesting because he said that it was never intended to happen what happened, and that he kept repeating that over and over, and that wasn't our intention. That wasn't what we set out, and he just kind of paces and relives what happened.
Right. All right. So what now also everybody, there's going to be a second part to this show, and it's going to be on remote viewing. So we're going to finish this topic here on the Keddie Resort murders, and then the second part we will go into remote viewing with Cat Angel. All right, so what I'm going to talk about now, the Keddie Murders. The Keddie Murders is an unsolved 1981 American quadruple murder that took place in Keddie, a former resort town. The murders took place in cabin 28 during the late evening of April 11th and into the early morning of April 12th. The victims were Glenna, also known as Sue Sharp. She was 36 years of age. Her son, John, age 15, and his friend Dana, Wingate, age 17. Now, in the morning of April 12th, Sue's 14-year-old daughter, Sheila, who is our guest tonight, discovered the bodies of Sue, John, and Dana in the cabin's living room upon entering her home after sleeping over at a friend's house in the nearby cabin. Now, what's funny about that as well is that nobody heard anything.
I know. I forgot about that, but I was looking at some old things, and I was shocked that nobody heard. And the cabins were very close.
Yeah, they were very close.
And it's up in a mountain, so voices carry like crazy. It's quiet up there, and that nobody heard anything. That's just I don't understand that.
I know, and I can't figure that one out either, Dee, because we have pictures of the cabin and how close the other. I mean, there's only maybe 5 feet.
Right, not much at all.
How could you not? People were home.
Right.
And Sheila was actually in one of the cabins staying overnight.
Right.
I don't understand that one. All 3 victims were found in the cabin. They were bound with electrical wire and medical tape. The examination of the bodies determined that each of the victims had been bludgeoned with a claw hammer. Sue and John had been stabbed repeatedly, and John's throat had been cut.
Right.
Dana Wingate was also manually strangled and bludgeoned with another weapon. One of the knives discovered at the scene had been so forcibly used that the blade was bent about 25 degrees.
That's just... It makes sense with what I got about what that night and the energy behind it. But still, when you think about physically, the power and force that went into that.
It was a hateful... that's hateful. Isn't that hate?
That's animalistic. That's just, yeah, I remember that clearly, the energy that was out there.
It is believed that the boys walked in on something at the cabin. The boys were fully dressed. They were fully dressed for cold weather. And the mother was in like a nightgown. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty clear that the boys were not in the cabin when they had walked in on something. Yeah. Most of the attention was paid to Glenna as far as hurting her and tying her up thoroughly and violently. Whereas the boys were loosely tied around the legs, and she was also covered up with a blanket.
Oh.
Now, 12-year-old Tina was presumably abducted from the cabin. The police had used their dogs in the days later to help search for Tina. However, 3 years later, and 60 miles from the crime scene in a remote area of Feather Falls, Tina's skull was found, and also some of her bones. But the rest of her body was never recovered.
Right, and that could be animals, and don't you think? Over because they only found bones, right?
Yeah, they found some of the bones.
Animals would come in and take, I would assume, and that's why they couldn't find it all.
And I think that is probably normal.
Yes.
I've heard of that before with other bodies.
Yeah.
Dana Wingate was not killed in the same fashion as the other victims. He was beaten, but not stabbed. Now for some reason they put his head on a cushion, and we don't know for sure if that was to make him. Some say it was made to make him feel comfortable, but.
That
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't
because his head was bludgeoned.
Right.
And I think he was put on a cushion to make it look staged. They believe that the crime scene was staged.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And why they did that, why his head would be on a cushion, maybe because of the way he was killed.
Right.
Now, Wingate may have been utilized to assist in the binding of the victims. Statements made by associates support that he would probably succumb if threatened rather than strike back at an assailant. Blood was observed on Glenna Sharp's feet, as if she was walking around when she was still alive. And don't know about that either. The crime scene reflects that the offender responsible for these murders exhibited great control, that he did not precisely plan on killing all the victims. Now, there was a .177 caliber pellet gun that was recovered at the crime scene, and all of the weapons may have come from the residence of the victims, like the steak knife and the hammer, and I'll ask Sheila about that. Now, according to the investigative reports, Glenna Sharp was covered with a blanket after she was killed. Now, and the blanket came from her bed, and they seem to think that this act on the offender could be the key as to who killed her. And I don't know what that would represent.
Don't they think that there's more than just one, though?
Yeah, they do.
So I get 2 or 3.
Yeah. So there were 3 children that were alive and found in the bedroom adjacent to the crime scene. Greg and Rick Sharp, 10 and 5. And apparently they slept through it all. But I'm going to ask Sheila about that as well. If she... she may have talked to her brothers to see if they've seen anything. It's possible. And then Justin, 12-year-old, a family member, also stayed overnight. He was friends of the family, and he was in that back bedroom with the other boys. Now, according to what I read, Justin's statements would prove a major source of confusion in the decades to come, as his recounting of the event would change. First, his hurried hypnosis with the county sheriff, then under a polygraph, and would change once again under professional hypnosis. Wow. And much later in his adult life, his story would change again. So with that, and also the cabin was torn down in 2004.
On purpose.
On purpose, yeah.
I was trying to make it into a resort again.
Yeah.
So they want to get that as far away because I remember, they didn't want the owner to know we were up there.
I know, but I think they've destroyed several cabins. Some of the stuff I don't think it's ever going to happen.
No, I don't either, which is a good thing.
So everybody, let's welcome Sheila to the show. Sheila, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hey, Sheila.
Hi.
I'm hoping that that you will tell the viewers, if you can, what happened the next morning when you came home after sleeping over at a neighbor's cabin.
Well, came home to get clothes to go to church with the neighbors, and walk in the door, and first thing I saw was a body right next to the door, which was my brother. And then I think might have seen Dana, and I did not see my mom. And then I ran back next door screaming. And according to the neighbors down the line, they said that I said it was Johnny, but I don't remember me saying that, and I could have just been in shock. And then we went and got my brothers out by the window, out of their bedroom window, and then called the cops and my uncle.
How long before the police showed up?
I couldn't tell you that. I don't remember. My uncle arrived before the cops. That I do know.
Did he go inside the cabin?
Yes.
Were you with him?
No. I did not go back in until the police took me back in after the bodies were removed.
And what did the police ask of you, Sheila, at that time?
They were, if things in the house, if this was where it's supposed to be, was this ours, just that type of stuff, just the normal going through the house.
Now, did they show you the weapons that were used?
No, I never did see them. I've just seen photos. And you know what? They could have showed me way back then, but I don't remember. I've just, with all the documentaries and stuff, I've seen a lot more photos. And from what I've been told, everything did come from our house, including the medical tapes and I think it was electrical cords and telephone cords.
And the little knife, that was a knife, I believe, that came from your kitchen. Now, what about the claw hammer?
I think that came from ours, from what I was told, but like I said, I don't remember.
Do you want to ask her a question?
I'm sorry. Maybe in a minute.
Okay. So, how do you feel how the investigation went?
Well, now I feel like it was botched. I feel like that the Plumas County didn't know. For one, they didn't know what they were doing, and I still think they don't know what they're doing, and nothing's really being done about it. And that's what the frustrating part is. Everybody, I would get phone calls while I was living with my aunt and the foster family I was living with. Every once in a while, I'll say, "Hey, do you remember this? Do you remember that?" And that was about it.
So the police just pretty much at some point decided that there was no leads, it's just so weird that that was it.
I believe so, yes. I think it just kind of, they did everything they could supposedly, and I found out a lot more information in the last, I think, 10 to 15 years, since Josh did the documentary.
Right. Do you think that the police were hiding something?
I think so.
If I remember right, it's been so long, but that they knew who did it, and they were hiding the fact.
I believe they did, yes. Just by what I've heard. As the two main suspects that everybody seems to think that it was, that they had them get out of town.
Right.
Let's see, it was Marty Smart and another fellow they called Bo. It was John Bo. I can't pronounce his name. Bo.
Yeah, Bodine or something like that. Correct.
Bodeby, yeah, and he was also connected with the mob as well.
That's what I've been hearing over the last few years. Yes.
How well did your family know this Marty Smart?
I don't remember him, and because I was gone for part of the time that they lived in Keddie, and from what I heard, he didn't like my brother. My mom hung out with his ex-wife at the time, so they, and of course, their sons and all us kids would hang out together too. So.
And Justin, who stayed that night in your cabin, was Marty Smart's stepson.
Correct.
And so what I read was that's if Marty Smart did commit the murders, that's why the boys in the back weren't touched.
That's what I believe. I think that's why I really think it had to do with them, because as brutal as this was, and with Tina missing, why would they leave 3 other kids in the house?
But then I also read that Justin, in one of his hypnosis sessions, said that he saw Marty there.
That's what I had heard too. I don't speak, unfortunately, prior to this, Justin decided not to talk to me anymore, just with some of the issues. Because I think he really knows who did it, but he was, as he put it, he was waiting for something, and we were under the impression that that his mom could have been possibly outside or knew about it, and he was protecting her. That's why he wasn't going to say anything, and I told him, he was going to write his own book, I guess.
Right.
And I told him, I said, well, I would rather you not use my name or anything in it. So he pretty much doesn't talk to me anymore.
Did the mother ever? Do you remember if the mother ever owned a plaid shirt?
I don't know.
Do you know what was her first name?
Marilyn.
Marilyn. Oh, that's right. And now Marty and Bo are both deceased now. Is that correct?
Correct. But throughout this whole investigation and documentary and people doing research and stuff, there's supposedly a third person that's involved.
Yeah.
And they're still very much alive. And at one time, they were still down in the Plumas County area.
Yeah. Is there any other
No, I
question?
just remember 3. I remember 3.
Yeah.
3 guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I know who they're thinking it is, but I don't know if I should say it. So,
What? Go ahead.
D. Lake.
Who's that?
That's who, he was one of the neighbors that lived there. That Marty supposedly was with, like, the next day, I guess.
A D Lake?
Yes.
That's a female?
No, a male.
D.
D?
Like the letter D.
Oh.
D-E-E-E.
Oh, where is that
D-E-E.
kid?
D. Lake.
Oh. Did we talk about that when we did our first show on that?
Gosh,
a
I
long
don't
time
remember.
ago?
It's been so long.
Oh, I know. It's been gosh, several years. We aired a show on this. A while back. So now Marty's cabin was 26, and you were I remember when we were there. Of course, the cabin was torn down.
It was up to
so
the right.
it was like up the hill from your cabin.
Kind of like Kitty Corner, correct? Because there was the house I was staying in next to, then the road, and then their house was at the end, at that road, right there at the intersection.
So I just have such a hard time with the things that happened and how violent it was and how long it went on, that nobody heard anything. And I just, being out there and how quiet it is and how sound travels just, out where you...
Well, I know a couple, because there was stuff going on at the bar down there.
Okay.
And from what I've read in some of the reports, that people they heard, I think they thought a party was going on, or, they did hear a couple, muffled sounds.
Okay.
Coming from the cabin.
So somebody heard something, but they didn't.
But they didn't think it was anything, just other than
No.
people partying, probably.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Well, then that makes more sense than nobody heard anything, because some of the reports say that. Nobody heard anything.
Yeah, no, they, I was really surprised at how much I learned.
So what more were you able to get a copy of the police reports?
We were able to get a few things when they were doing the documentary. And then when they did part 2, and found a lot more disturbing. For one, my mom was hogtied.
Right.
And I did not know that until the second set of interviews we were doing with Josh. And that there, it's like, okay, she's under 100 pounds and you had a hog tie her.
Right.
And so that kind of upset me a little bit, let's put it that way.
So they didn't really tell you that much about the crime scene then, obviously because you were only 14 years old at the time.
Correct. They didn't, and I have not seen, I've seen some photos, but out of respect, I asked Josh not to post a lot of the photos of the bodies, and he on that, and he would black out the bodies and stuff like that. So, because I did not want to see it, and I didn't think it was fair that they would be exploited like that.
Right.
Is there any so you believe that Bo and Marty and one other person were involved in the killings?
From what I hear, yes. I think Marty really had something to do with it, and I know there's websites out there, and supposedly the niece is saying that everybody's slandering her uncle, which is Bo, and everything like that. I don't participate in that anymore in those sites because I have been called every name you can mention.
You're probably talking about the same site I'm aware of.
Probably, I think there's only one on there. I think it's
yeah. Don't say it. Don't say it. Yeah. Don't.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah. 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 Now, why do you think they took? Now, from what I understand as well, that the boy said that Tina was in the cabin. She was in the cabin.
Yes.
And she left with them with a blanket?
That, I don't exactly know. That's one of the mysteries is, did they go with her? There was even rumors going around that she was pregnant and supposedly by Marty that he had raped her.
Oh, yeah, I read that.
That he wanted to give, and that's what happened. That's another twist on this is that they think that's what happened with my mom. She found out and was going to, do something. But, if that's the truth, I had no clue. Because as far as I know, Tina hadn't started her cycle yet. And so I don't know if that was what was going on, or if Tina tried to run and they got her, or, I don't think we'll ever know.
Yeah, and in the police reports, did anybody talk about or speculate as to why they did take Tina and didn't kill her in the cabin with the others?
No, I don't think they really knew.
Yeah, because I can't figure that one out.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will ever know what, why.
Unless they, we're trying, because if she came out and saw it and we're trying to say, hey, I don't know. I can only think what would have happened.
Now, so Justin was supposed to write a book, and I think the fella that found Tina's skull was going to write a book, but I don't think any other books came out.
As far as I know, nothing else has come out, no.
So it seems that every Avenue book or documentary or what just seems to be put on hold or stopped.
Yeah, well, I think from what I hear, I don't know exactly what happened with Josh. I have not gotten into that. It's just everything just kind of, from what I hear, the one time he did everything he could do, and that was it. But others, I've heard rumors that they are talking about, suing Josh. Bo's niece and everybody.
Oh.
Do you know why?
Because he said lies and online and, in the documentaries and stuff about Bo.
So they want to keep Bo's name good, so they're saying that
Well,
he's
but-
slandering him.
But didn't Josh get all that information from the police department? I don't think Josh made that up.
No, Josh didn't. I don't think Josh made that up.
I mean, he's an educated man. Why would he make that stuff up?
But it's family,
Yeah.
so family's trying to protect family. And it seems everybody's trying to protect everybody else but you and your family.
Correct, and that's, and that's also why I stopped participating on the sites, because, I was called a liar, I wasn't there, I didn't know my family, it's like, I don't know, it was just, I just stopped participating. It wasn't worth it.
So how do you, after all of this and after all these years, how is your life? How do you keep moving forward when you had this horrible trauma happen and your family was taken away and people are calling you names? How do you live and how do you get through that?
It all started with my brothers. I've had to, I've stayed strong for them, and then I have my family now. I can't let it destroy me.
Right.
I'm not going to let it destroy me.
Could you tell us, we've been focusing on this one event with your family, which was horribly tragic. Can you tell people about your family other than what happened to them? Can you tell them what they were like when they were alive and you all were together?
We were a pretty close family. Yes, we did, Mom was a single mom of 5 kids. She left my father, and they were getting divorced, and she was trying to just start a new life. And yes, Johnny was, difficult, and that's why we moved to Keddie, to keep, to help him and be by my uncle. And I was always, when I was home, always with either Johnny or Tina at time, most of the time. My mom was quiet. She kept to herself.
Did she work in town?
I don't think from what I hear, she did do a couple jobs, but I don't remember. I mean, she could have been doing it while I was at school. Unfortunately, I don't remember. Somebody said she volunteered at the old folks home where my grandfather was. She did work at one time, I think, at the Elks Club. But otherwise, she was going to school.
She wanted, when she moved you all, she wanted to make a better life for her kids. And that's, for a single mother with 5 children, I mean, I know I only have one son, but I moved with him and it was very hard. And I just know that it sounds like she did everything she could and loved you all so much.
She did.
How are your other 2 brothers doing?
They're doing really well. Greg has a little daughter. He's still down in where he's been living. Yeah, and Rick is doing very well. He and his wife just celebrated, I think, their 15-year anniversary.
Oh, wonderful.
So they're all doing really well. And with them, and what's been kind of nice for me is the last few years, I've reconnected with a lot of people from my way past, like when we lived in Mississippi, and some people who were really good friends with my mom, and when we lived in Mississippi. So that was kind of nice.
Do you have any other questions?
No.
Is there anything else you'd like to say, Sheila, before we go into the remote viewing?
No, I think I just want people to know that, even though I'm not active in a lot of the stuff, I do still think about it, and there are people out there that are investigating it still, and on the good side, they're investigating it. So, I have to move on. pretty much have in my mindset that I don't think it's ever going to be solved. Yes, it can be. I mean, because other cases that have been older than mine have been, but I don't hold my breath anymore. I can't.
Right.
Now, the next part of the show, Sheila, is on remote viewing, and it's going to be very graphic.
Okay.
Do you want to stick with us? Do you want to hear it?
I can stick as long as I can because I'm at a Barry Manilow concert, and the doors are opening now. He doesn't come on until 7:30, so we're good. So.
Oh,
I love that. Barry Manilow.
All right. Okay. What time is it now? So, I don't know. So, what is that, in about an hour or so?
I think so, because it looks like they're just opening the doors. So we're outside right now, and it is, it's just about 6:30. So.
Okay. All right. Then stick with us. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back. And we're going to be back with Cat Angel, who is going to do a remote viewing. So we'll be right back. Hold on. Hey everybody, welcome back to part 2 of our show tonight. I'm your host Norene, and I have my awesome co-host with me, Donna Raymond, my buddy, my friend.
Clap for myself.
So tonight is part 2, and this is on remote viewing. And what I want to tell you is that when I had decided to do this show, it's never been solved. It's an unsolved murder since 1981, and so I thought about Kat, and I know she has done remote viewing. She's an expert in it, and she has also worked on some cases. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to give Kat a call and ask her about these Keddie murders. There's not much on the internet about it, and I was hoping that she could go back and give me some information on how she does her remote viewing and what she saw. So I called her the other day, and I had her on the phone, and I asked her about the Keddie murders and asked her if she could please remote view for me. Now, I have to tell you that at this particular time, what happened in her house, she goes, oh my God, she said, all the electricity just went off. We have no electricity at all. And I said, well, we're still talking on the phone, so that's all I really need you for. I want to just talk with you. And I asked her about if you would please remote view to Keddie, and she said yes. She said, hold on, let me do my thing, whatever she does. So, Kat, I have Kat with us right now. So, Kat, do you want to finish the conversation that we had?
Yeah, absolutely, Noreen. It was very interesting because I didn't have, I knew you were having a show on Thursday, but I didn't know, nor was I familiar with the case. So when you called and asked me to remote view for the case, I didn't, and I actually, for some reason, cannot hear Noreen. Noreen, I have lost audio with you. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I have lost audio.
Okay, Robert, why do we
there
have...
There you go. I can hear you now.
All right.
Okay. And of course, this is not surprising, actually, because, when we were on the phone and first started doing the remote viewing, we had quite a few little paranormal things happen. So it doesn't, and we also had a mutual friend on the phone that was a third person listening to this. So when you asked me to remote view this, what you had said to me is, okay, this is about a murder case from 1981 and you told me the name of Keddie, these Keddie murders, and I didn't actually know that all of a sudden all of this information was going to start pouring in, and it did. And I think if I'm right, we talked for
Oh, a long time.
2 hours.
Oh yeah, easy 2 hours.
Easily. Maybe even 2.5. And I got so much information, and I know Donna has gotten some amazing pieces of information. And for the people out there who don't know or not familiar with remote viewing, one of the places that remote viewing started was the CIA, the military, and it was used very successfully to view things that kind of go in the past in the Soviet area. So remote viewing is a form of psychic viewing, and the way that it works is when I begin, it's kind of like rewinding your TV on TiVo, and you're rewinding all the way back to 34 years ago. And what I see is, what I try to explain to people is movie scenes, and then they go in snippets, and then I close my eyes and I see the whole thing unfold. So, I did not have any information on this case. So when I started to remote view this, where would you like me to start, guys? Because I'm kind of going to go back to everything that I saw, and I can do it in the timeline that I see it.
So is that the timeline you see, is that the timeline of how it happened?
Yes.
So why don't you start with that day, the day of, during the day before this all happened?
Okay. I didn't actually go as far back as the day. And you guys will have to forgive me. I am going to have to close my eyes during some of this because I need to be able to view that and not what's in front of me. So that I can see that and not you guys. Okay. The day that I'm seeing, because we're going to go a little bit further back than what I saw, I went right to when everything started in the room. The daytime, I can see everybody kind of making plans, changing plans. Certain people were supposed to be one place, and then that changed, and I don't know if that has to do with sleepovers and things as to where kids were going to be, because there were people there that definitely were not necessarily supposed to be there, but were. And sometimes things happen for a reason, and I believe I also told Norene that the other thing that I am somewhat battling with here is one of your loved ones that is coming through that has things to say, but I want to get through the remote viewing part of this for you guys. Now, because if we were to have any varied opinion, I think any little pieces that any psychic, whether remote viewing and what Donna, your wonderful co-host, has gotten, although they might be different, it just means that what I'm seeing is something maybe that is going to a little bit deeper level. But some of the things that I heard Donna talk about are really interesting because they're things that I saw. So it actually corroborates, which I find is quite interesting. All right, so the daytime doesn't seem like there's much going on in the way of just people changing plans to me. All right, now the first thing that I was brought to in this remote viewing is there are again, this is my viewing and strictly my opinion, and I know, Norene, you can even explain that there were lots of things, because I had no electricity and I had no internet, and oddly I found that you can't find even post this stuff on the internet, which is interesting, but I think it goes in tune with sort of some of the things that I saw as to why. Now, and this is really a little bit, this is difficult, and I apologize because there are some touchy things that I'm going to touch on here, all right? First of all, there are two people that I saw that are in the room that are participating in this brutal slaughtering of people. There's also one man that is standing on the inside of the door. And the reason I say that is because there's another man standing on the outside of the door, sort of as a watch out. Okay, and I can tell you what he looks like, and I can tell you what I saw on Monday night. What I saw when I spoke to Norene Monday night, and the way that I explained this to her, was the way I was getting sort of, do you remember this analogy, Norene?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What I said is, now the way that I see things, remote viewing or psychic-wise, and Donna probably does some of the same too, is you get symbols that then become a language for things. If you saw, in this case, what I was seeing, I was getting this picture from the back of, and this is going to sound kind of silly, but Elmer Fudd, from the rabbit and the cartoon. Now, what that meant to me is that I was seeing a plaid, black and red, like flannel jacket or flannel shirt. And this was the guy that was standing. He was not partaking in anything violent. He was sort of forced to watch, and there was nothing he could do about it. Now, also, there's a great deal of fear after this. Clearly, when you see something like this, it is beyond traumatizing. And I want to make clear that he did not have any participation. He was drug in, and he was sort of forced to be there. Now, this person that I am picturing also is currently out of touch, cannot be reached, and has not been able to reach for a while, and there's a reason for that. There was two men on the inside. Now, I've seen some sketch drawings here earlier, about 20 minutes before we went on, that are not matching what I'm seeing. First of all, the thing that I picked up was that two of the men that were involved with this were dead. One was mafia, and the other guy was involved as well, but he seems very nervous. And where I had told Norene, he's doing this, he's rocking back and forth because he's so nervous that something is going to be found out that is going to affect family that is still living. There is a lot of danger in this case because of what I have seen, and I'm going to be very cautious as not to put anyone in danger, because for Sheila, I want to tell you that the reason your mom has come into me 3 times this week is out of protection for you and for other people involved in this case. Now, I also want to say that there's a point where I think that you, Sheila, you were seeking such strong answers, it was consuming your life, and she really wants you to know that she wants you to let go and live. And you being here tonight is amazing, because there are some things that are going to help with this, I hope, and also then some messages that she has for you that will be relatable only to you. Now, the next thing that I saw about the man on the outside of the door is also mafia. He was sort of watching out. He was a watch out. Now, it was nighttime, and there is a car that is circling. This is what I saw. There's a watch out. Somebody is watching out, and I strongly believe that this person, and I will explain more about this person and their role in a moment. I think this car was seen by other people, and I believe that it put the people who were in the car and the people in the cabin doing these murders at risk of being found out. Now, I know that what I saw inside there was one of the most brutal things that I've ever had to remote view, and such unnecessary violence. When I entered the room, and keep in mind that I am remote viewing this, so I walk into the room and imagine that what I am seeing is sort of a fly on the wall, although be it a very quiet one. Okay, this is really difficult. One of the things I want to say about this scene is the kind of rope that was used, the manner in which this was done is very much not like, I know that some people have maybe suggested drugs, things of that nature, and that could be an aspect because of the mafia involvement, because in the 1980s there was strong mafia involvement in cocaine dealing and things of that nature, and that could be what some people are seeing about the drug connection. But what I was shown, and this may help you understand the unnecessary, what seemed like maybe randomness of this, is that I was shown that the mom, and this was such a regret on her part, she was struggling very hard to keep her head above water from a very, very violent man, that and I hate to say this because I know this is your father, Sheila, but she struggled to get away from him, and she came through and she showed me some things about him that that will be integral to this case. I believe that he did somewhat know who these men were, but the mom had met one of these mafia people, and there was a relationship of sorts. Because of everything she had been through in her past, I think she felt like, he offered protection, and he certainly offered a lot of empty promises to her as well. And when one particular promise of rescuing her and providing great things for her kids and her family fell through, it seems to me that she was in a great deal of stress the day before, possibly even a couple days before, and the day of. She was in a lot of distress over this personal thing. And I would think that the people around her might have noticed also that she was upset by something that seemed out of the norm.
She hung up.
Okay. We got disconnected.
She said that if there came...
She's at a concert right now,
yeah.
So Barry Manilow could be starting.
Okay, Barry Manilow is good. All right. And of course, everyone knows this show will be cached. And okay, now, I can kind of finish through this and breathe maybe a little easier, because it's very hard to have, and I know Donna has got to agree with this, when you have that person's family on the phone, what you're bringing forward is very private and personal and difficult. So, okay, this relationship now I cannot hear you, Norene. I'm just going to keep talking, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? We're listening.
Yes.
We're listening with you.
Okay,
You have our
We're
attention. But when can we ask you questions?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I do have some questions, but
All right. Okay, great. Absolutely. You know how they talk about pillow talk? Sometimes people in the mafia, they will say things to people, especially she overheard some things. I feel like not only that way, but there was a bar somewhere on this property, and they came there a lot. Now, and I can't hear you guys again.
oh, we're here.
We're just listening.
Okay, all right. You're just leaning in and
Yeah, we're all ears, honey.
okay. Now, in this, there was some business dealings that would be done with these group of mafia people there, and what I picked up in the remote viewing is these were Chicago mafia. Okay, they traveled sometimes, and what I saw was the main group of mafia were from Chicago, and then they also traveled to Reno and to New Jersey. Now, they primarily hung out at the Chicago place, and it's a pub that I saw and I can still see in Chicago. Now, the mother threatened to, and she didn't even really mean to, and by the way, for Sheila, I do not see anything about your mother personally doing drugs or being involved in any dealings of that nature. I know that there were possibly teenagers and stuff that might have been, but I do not see the mom at all being someone who did them or being involved, all right? She accidentally said, I'm going to tell blah, 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 something. And we all know that in many cases, depending on what that is, you've just signed a death warrant, so to speak, on yourself. And this guy that she was going to talk on didn't take very kindly to that. So they knew where she was. They came out there. The two men that are dead, the one that keeps rocking, really, really crazy guy. The other one is very, very mean and very, well, they're both pretty sadistic. But the other one, he's more put together. He's more like the boss. And when they came into town, they had people that were even more sadistic and crazy. People that they were willing to recruit.
Coming into town, into Keddie, or into the nearby town?
Well, there was a nearby town that I feel was at least a good... There was another place about 50 miles somewhere outside of town. And we're going to get to where Tina is involved in this and where they took her. Okay? The mother, when they knew that she did know them, okay? But she opened the door and that was it. And the guy who was on watch out in this car that was circling, were watching for the boys. Now, the boy that was there that wasn't supposed to be there, this is where I said I saw the changing around of who was going to be sleeping where or sleeping over, what have you. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And when, it's really hard, when they came in, she was already in a very, she was not alive, okay? And I also believe there were some very brutal things that were done to her that I do not believe.
I don't understand that.
Oh, so so when the boys came in, she was already gone. Her
Tina?
son, the son and she's talking about Sue.
No, Sue.
Sue.
Yes.
When
She
her
was,
son
but
and the friend came in, she's saying she was
Yes.
already dead.
Yeah.
Really?
That's what she's saying.
Now, here's the thing. There also is somebody in a room that I did not want to go in, remote viewing wise. I went in to the kitchen and I saw drawers opened. Also, Norene, I did not know at the time what murder weapons or anything were done, but I believe that what I explained was that there were knives, and there was also, I had asked, I said there was a hatchet involved, but it wasn't in, I found out later where this hatchet was used, and I will get to that. Now, there was something in this room that I didn't want to go in, or my guides did not. It was dark. I didn't go in there. Something in there that could have already, there was somebody in there that, now for the moment that I did poke my head in, and this isn't that this person was in the cabin, but I all of a sudden saw a little girl run by. I know now that was Tina, but she wasn't. She was trying to, and I don't even know if I've expressed this, but she was trying to hide. And when they saw her, then I will explain what they did with her and why they took her. There was a younger male of these two that are dead that Tina knew. And although Tina was very young, she was really wise beyond her years, unfortunately, due to what I witnessed as abuse, sexual abuse. Now, the mother also told me about the husband that she had gotten away from, that the easiest way that I can put this is that she said that he had molested all of the children in the family, girls and boys, both. And I know that this is a super hard topic, but she made it very clear that he did this. And because of that, at this point in Tina's young life, it made her more, I guess, mature in other ways faster. And this younger man that they did know, because from the bar, from hanging out here at this resort, which I really don't even like to call it after seeing what I saw, he had been with her or made very strong advances at her, and he sort of wanted her for other reasons, okay, that were sexual. And again, this is really truly one of the sickest cases that I've ever seen or worked on. After they came in, the next thing, after these murders were done, a couple of things that I noted, and I need to make clear, the rope and the way that these bodies were laid out and the way that everything that I was seeing came through, and I told Norene this the other night, is that it was staged. It was meant to look like one thing, but it was something else. But the thing is the thing that they made it look like in all actuality ended up being things that are very mafia-like, the heinousness of this. There were cuts that were made on the mother to the area where you would carry a baby. And that was some sort of a very sick cut as well. I feel like both of these men held her down. One did a certain amount of the violence, and the other did something else. And when it was all said and done, the man who stood watch on the outside was the man who had been involved with her. And due to his relationship, whatever you want to call this, he placed the blanket over her as a way of, he didn't want everybody else to, it was kind of weird. And I talked to, I was not able to have the person that was going to be doing the profiling or the other thing for profiling, behavioral analysis, said that is very, Grace Moran, yes, the uterus, is where I saw this, or this cut was there for a reason. It meant something. He put this blanket over her, and this is often done for personal reasons. They want to cover someone up out of some sort of weird, sick sense of remorse. But they really weren't remorseful, but they put the blanket over her for that reason. Now, somebody who just stumbled in like that would not do that. Okay, now, the little girl. What I was shown about the little girl, about Tina, is that they basically, the younger one of the two that had a previous something, might have even been against her will. I do feel like it was against her will. They basically said, take her and do whatever you want with her, and they did. They took her someplace at least 50 miles away from the crime scene itself, and this very crazy man, who, by the way, is still alive, and I will just say that I'm not going to say any names, but it is a very strong belief of mine that the person who did this, what I'm about to tell you, that is still alive, is currently very obsessed with this case. And the reason that he is because he doesn't want anyone else to get credit or step on his toes. And he is very much older now, but what he did is he took her outside of town, and there were other mafia people and also men who were not, and they did not so nice things to her. And then this crazy man, the one that I'm talking about that is obsessed with this case, current day, who has shown some very strong psychological things that I know that, I think, Norene, you know what I'm referring to, also indicate his twisted nature. And it's very clear to me who it is and why he's holding on to this so dearly. When that was all said and done, they told this very crazy person, sadistic, to do whatever with her body and what have you. Now, what he did, and this is where the hatchet comes in, and I there was only one piece of her body that was able to be found, and the rest of it was, from what I saw, carried off by animals. And it's very tragic, and I know that people want to know why she was taken. It's purely because of being sick, twisted murderers. Now, of sexual nature, really twisted, and I would strongly believe that this same man committed other crimes that were similar in nature somewhere in and around that area. I would be very shocked if there were not other missing women, even some that might have been very close to the Keddie community.
And that was done that same night? She was killed that same night then? Okay.
Absolutely. Yes, she died the same night. Yes.
Now, what I'm curious about is when the boys walked in, what happened to them? I mean, and so from what we understand, that they were tied up loosely instead of violently like they tied up Sue.
Right. Well, the reason for that is because from what I am seeing, they received blows that would have knocked them out. And they couldn't put up a fight. I also am seeing chairs, and I don't know what the relationship to those chairs are. But I feel like they, at one point, were in them, and then they hit them and they were out. That's why they didn't have to tie them up so securely.
Then what was the point of them tying them up?
To stage it.
Okay. And why did they put Dana's head on a pillow?
Because why did they cut the little?
Yeah.
Because they're sick. You know the movie The Godfather where they leave the horse's head in the bed? That sort of thing actually happens in the mafia, and I know that is very difficult to understand. But being a remote viewer and seeing a lot of other horrible things like this, I can tell you that there's just evil in the world. I can't hear you.
Oh no, we're
Okay.
just listening.
We're taking a deep breath.
Right.
Yeah, taking this all in.
Okay. I know that this is super. Okay, now let me tell you what I see happen with the car, because I'm trying to cover everything, so this will be on tape. The car that was the lookout car.
Do you have a description? Do you have a description of that car?
The car looked like, it looked, my parents had a, not like a Cadillac, but a very large sedan, and I can't remember the name of it right now, it just went out of my head.
A Chrysler?
Yeah, like a, one of those very big ones that were very boxy in the front, and,
oh, Lincoln. Lincoln was boxy.
Yeah,
Lincoln.
That's what it looks
Yeah.
like. Yes. Has the square kind of headlights in the
Right.
front and all that, okay? Which, if you think about it, back in those days, that actually was a pretty popular vehicle for people in the mafia. Now, people saw this vehicle, and I believe in the days that followed this murder had even talked about it. They fast-tracked this out of town so fast, it would have made your head spin. And this is where I'm also going to tell you that there was a cover-up. There was low-level law enforcement and high-level law enforcement involved in this cover-up. And that is why I believe a lot of things have disappeared. There's cover-up again at the local level. There are lots of great police in that community, and lots of current day high-up law enforcement officials that do a wonderful job. However, in 1981, that wasn't necessarily always the case. And this car was fast-tracked out of there quickly. And the next thing that I saw was a construction site where they poured cement, and what I could see was over here, if I was looking to my right, were smokestacks of industry in Chicago. And they lowered this car, they crunched it into the smallest box that you could crunch a car into, and poured it into cement, and they got rid of that car. That car will never be found. Will never be found.
So that car had a strong meaning then to
All
this,
of the
to this
evidence,
case.
there's so much evidence in that car, it would be unreal, because there was so much blood, and there was so much what currently could have been maybe solved with DNA and all the different things we have now. They got rid of it, and I also do believe that is part of the reason that that cabin is no longer there. There is no evidence that can be found, and nobody's talking. And these people that were going to write books and that were going to do this, they were silenced, and they were scared to death. I also feel, and I don't know this to be a fact, but I feel like there are some people missing, like people that just went MIA, that wanted to speak out in this case. It's absolutely very mysterious to me, the level of hush that is related to this case.
Wow.
Really? It just, for this one little lady, this little woman who was nobody, I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but really wasn't a threat to anybody, and they went to all this effort.
Yeah, why? Why all this? Why all of this for this family?
It was meant to send a message that you don't screw with the wrong people. And they left other people alive in the family to witness that. They don't usually do things in a small way. Now, it might make sense if somebody had just walked in on her, like a drug dealer or something off the streets, then they would have just killed her, right? Who else would lay in wait like a pack of wolves?
Well, also, the three boys that were in the adjacent bedroom, and then they probably would have killed Sheila too, had she been home that night.
Oh my God, yes. She was being looked out for on so many levels. Guardian angels, whatever you know, there are people who miss a flight and it ends up being one that crashes.
Yeah.
She was meant to be here, and her mom does not want her to feel guilty anymore about surviving. There's nothing she could have done, and there are reasons nobody heard anything from that room as well. People ask, okay, why didn't anybody hear anything?
Right. Why?
Because they immediately, what I am seeing is a white, it could have been a sock or it could have been a towel, and they put it in her mouth and then put duct tape over her mouth. But when they were done murdering her, they removed the duct tape and took the cloth out because they didn't need it anymore, and they laid it on the body. And I would guess, and I don't know if there's any evidence of this, that towel was somewhere near the body. This white thing that they shoved in her mouth. And as soon as someone came in the door, they got the duct tape. Nobody heard anything. Why? Mafia is very good at doing what they do. Local drug dealers or somebody off the street couldn't have had this level of staging and everything that was done. No way.
So the staging was meant to throw the police department off of Mafia, but who?
Well, yes and no, because again, like I said, there is a local law enforcement level that was there during the time that is covering this up. And there is somebody still alive that was integral into this case that is still alive but not employed there. And trust me, this one goes far and wide on the cover-up area.
So they suspect that it was a Marty Sharp who lived in cabin 26. It was right up from cabin 28. Marty is no longer alive, and Justin happens happened to be his stepson. And so, do you believe that Marty could have been involved in this?
He was mean enough to, but no, I do not believe that he was. He was a son of a bitch in a whole lot of other areas, but the one thing that I saw today was that there was some gambling and things going on in this bar where I feel like that stepfather hung out at a lot or what have you. And there could be, there's some illegal things, gambling and things going on this property. And I will tell you that the other thing, and I know I mentioned this to you, Norene, the other night, is that back during Prohibition, this place was around and it was a speakeasy and there were things going on there. There have always been things going on there that people didn't know about.
Well, sure, it was in an isolated area.
Right, and that's
very isolated.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I could see the alcohol. I could see the they would fly people in from Las Vegas, associates and things, and they would party there and drink there and do all kinds of things. And this place had some shady things go on throughout its lifetime. And the mafia never quite had their hands out of this place either. And they knew how to cover things up. And
So
there was somebody else, one of the names that I got during this, initially with you the other day was Mark. Don't know who he's relatable to, but it was one of the names that I got. John was another name.
William. It was John it was William as well. There was a William as well.
William or Bill.
Yeah.
And, gosh, you know what? I had my, I remember, the other thing was, and this was really weird. There was a man, there was a time where I got a snippet of fishing poles. Do you remember that, Noreen?
Yes. And yes, I remember you asking me about that. Yes.
This guy that's in this room watching, he was forced to dispose of certain things, and I feel like there are certain things that were thrown in the middle of the water, but they will never be found, but they were put in a body of water. And whoever this is liked to fish, took people out, but I can see lots of fishing poles lined up. So I don't know if this relates or could possibly relate to somebody in this case. But I guarantee you, I can't guarantee you, I mean, Donna knows, being psychic doesn't mean you're right 100% of the time.
Right.
But I've been remote viewing and doing this for 20 years. And these are all very strong imagery and strong messages that were given to me. In these fishing poles, 30 years ago, there might have been somebody who was a lot younger than that did this, but probably still is into that. But this psychotic person that wants the credit for what happened to Tina, that they said you can take her and do whatever you want, that caused her body to be dismembered in where it was found, he is still very much obsessed and interested in this case 34 years later. And he's watching. I wouldn't be shocked if he was watching right now. He hates law enforcement, federal government. He is one of those people that in his old age almost in some cases could be more dangerous than he was back then. Not as physically fit, but think about somebody like this, which is why I'm not mentioning any names here. I don't want to put myself at risk, and I don't want to put you guys or anyone else at risk, because rest assured there is risk in this, which is why I'm dancing around this. I'm trying to think this out as I say it very carefully.
Have you, now the other day when I was speaking with you, as you were talking with me, Sue was coming through and giving you messages. Can you tell us what those messages were?
Yes. She's come to me 3 times. The first was the part when Sheila was on the phone that she desperately wanted her to know. First of all, she was very sorry that she could not stop that evil man that molested all of the children in the family and other kids too. She was very sorry that she couldn't, and she feels very responsible for doing this, but she did not deserve this. Mm-mm. She did not deserve this. And she also told me about, I did not know anything about abuse, but do you remember, Norene, that you said that you wanted to know if I knew anything about the father, and that was what Sue told me, was about him being a child molester, and really, if anything, this is inadvertently his fault because of the things that he did, and there's a lot of reasons that this happened, but he was culpable as well. And
is he still around?
I feel like his energy is still here somewhere. Yeah. I'm not feeling him. I'm not hearing him or feeling him on the other side. No. But the mother also wants, the one thing that she had told me and shown me, that she wanted her daughter to know that would be only exclusive to her, was that there was I felt like they traveled around a lot around the country, and I don't know why, but there was a time where they stopped and there was sunflowers everywhere, all these yellow flowers, and they didn't have a lot of money, but she got all of the kids out of the car, and I can see them running in these daisies. I believe sunflowers, you know, those big sunflowers.
Yeah.
And that was one thing she wanted her to know. She also wanted her to know how proud she is of her and what a strong survivor she has been. But she does want her, and I think she has for a lot of parts known that she had to move on a long time ago, but she doesn't want any harm to come to anyone else because of this, which is why I want to be so careful with disinformation. She also, she's very sorry, and she doesn't want anyone else to get hurt. She's very protective from the other side now. Very protective.
Do you have any questions?
And she also told me about something that that man she was married to did to a small dog in their family.
Oh, I don't want to hear it.
I'm not going to,
Okay.
because I know how much you like animals, but I think that this will resonate with somebody who's still alive that can concur that happened.
Wow.
It's very convoluted, and it's going to be highly unlikely that any of this proof is going to be able to be brought forward. There are reasons that this case is considered closed.
Right.
And I've never actually seen quite anything like it, the level of hiding, and some things are left safer, not solved. That's all I can say.
So is there any point in even finding out at this time who really the killers were? Is there any point to it? Except to give closure to the two boys
Yes.
and Sheila.
Yes, and maybe this will help them to understand the heinous acts of these people, and that it wasn't the people in the town. Now, I do think that what some people may have gotten about maybe transient people or drug dealers had to do with, you think of the mafia coming to town in the 80s pushing cocaine and drugs. Well, they're going to pick locals that do that, and that could be what people are picking up on.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy in the red and black, I do want to say that this guy in the red and black plaid, either jacket or shirt, he does know what happened, and I do feel like he is missing. Not missing, but just on purpose.
Do you by any chance have a first and a last name, but can you just maybe give me the first initial?
I'm getting letter R.
Okay.
But integral names are the ones that I got before. Mark, William, I think there was a John and a Randy as well.
Well, the one is familiar to me, so.
All right. Now, I think that I'm not saying that this information is nothing is going to make this heinous crime any better.
Right.
But it might help explain a lot of the violence and sadisticness and randomness of it. It really wasn't random. You can't have that level of things that were there, the rope, all of these things were so mafia-ish.
Yeah.
And I really there's a lot of people scared all over who have tried to bring information forward. So
well, and by the way, come on. If the police department doesn't want this solved, or the sheriff's department, they're not going to believe anything.
Right.
And they're just going, okay, yeah, thanks, that's it.
Correct.
They don't want it to be solved.
No, they don't. And there are reasons for that too that I can't talk about, for the safety of other people. And it is a very fascinating case. Now, I do think that there could be justice brought to this very, very crazy individual that is so invested in this. Mm-hmm.
Some justice can become of that?
He's been responsible for some other... Once people sometimes get a taste of that, they don't stop.
Right.
And I do think there could be a chance he could be caught for one of those. Is that justice for them? No, but it might be justice.
Something, because there sure isn't anything.
Mm-mm.
No, there isn't, Donna. And it's... I know you've probably seen a lot of this, and you've seen this crime scene in your mind, and it sticks with you.
Yeah.
This one will stick with me forever.
Wow, thank you so much, Kat, for coming on and giving your remote viewing for this case, because I've had a lot of questions. We've known about this case since 2009, and actually even before then. And
it doesn't go away.
Yeah, it doesn't go away. No,
I mean so many cases, and
we
this is
think
one of
about it
those.
all the time.
Yeah.
I think about Sheila all the time. I always wonder how she's doing. It's just awful, It just really is awful that something like that could happen to a poor family there was no rhyme or reason for this to happen.
No.
So,
and there's so many people that the people that were there on accident, and yet they were the young man that was there. It's just tragic and brutal, and it's meant to send a message. Sort of back then, the message was, don't screw with us.
Right.
And I think they got that message across, because I don't think that town was ever the same after that.
It wasn't, and it never will be.
No.
They can't get anything going there. It's bad energy there. That's just,
Did
you can feel it.
you guys, I want to ask, you guys went there, right?
Right.
Okay, what kind of energy and feelings did you get, Donna, when you were there, being empathic and psychic?
There is, it's not just the people, but there's an energy in that ground, in that area, that I think goes way back, even just way back. Way, way long time, very old. And there's something that happens that sets it off, and it affects the people there. And I keep saying, if they just leave it alone, nobody should live there, they shouldn't build on it, because if they do, it's going to happen again. Not this, but other horrible things. It really feeds into it, and it causes people that may not do such things to do things that are violent. And I went out there again later. We just took a drive, and my husband was with me, and we went through there, and it was still there. I mean, it's just bubbling, waiting.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
the place
and,
is falling
there are
down.
other cases like... Wait, I can't hear y'all.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
She was just saying
no.
the place was falling down.
It's
but
rotting away. It's literally rotting away.
You've got like Amityville. You've got
Yeah.
like I know Dave went to the Wells house. There are so many places that have this energy where bad things happen, and it never goes away.
No, and it just ignites it every time someone goes to these places. It just ignites the worst in everyone. Everybody has their dark side, and it just brings it out. And people say, "I don't know what happened." And when I was out at Keddie, this one, person who was dead, he kept saying,
Our stream is back up. Our stream is coming back.
"See."
We are connection back to YouTube. It's still streaming.
Okay, let me see if I can get her back. Let me see if I can get her back. Oh, I lost. Okay, that was weird.
Yeah, we lost internet for some weird reason.
We lost internet for some reason.
Imagine that. I've had all kind ever since I did this remote viewing. By the way, in Norene, when we were on the phone the other day, you heard it.
Put your video camera on.
There you go.
Oh, hold on. Okay, well, you would think that it would be on, but hold on. Of course, it probably filtered off. Hold on. Here we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the one thing I have happening is I've had knocks in my kitchen, knocks on the wall. I've had things falling over. I've had in this one.
Well, you were slapped in the face as we were talking. You were slapped in the face.
I was slapped in the face, and there was no lights, and it startled me very, very much. Usually spirits don't hit me, and it was that dark mafia guy that is dead now. And my daughter even heard, she said she thought there might be a new spirit in my house. Now everyone can see behind me, everyone knows I'm into the paranormal experimentation and studying of haunted objects and dolls. And she goes, I think there's a new spirit at the house, because she's an empath. And and I said, a new spirit? Well, who's here? And she said,
Did you hear that knock?
Yeah.
okay, no, that is actually, I think somebody, nobody can come in because there's lights in front of the door. Okay, if you open the door any further, the lights are going to come over. Sorry. If the things that have been going on are very, although things go on in my house, she said she heard knocking in the kitchen, and there was a glass in the cabinet that was moved.
And this while we were talking about the Keddie murders?
Yes.
Yes.
It's been since then. Yes. Right. And of course, Sheila has been trying to really get my attention about this safety thing. Do you concur, Donna? Do you feel that same sense of she wants everyone to be safe?
Yeah, when I was out there, it was she was front and center. Then she kept saying, I couldn't protect, and now it's her mission, to make sure nobody else, like you said, nobody else gets hurt, nobody else gets affected by this, because she feels horrible that she could never protect her kids. And so that was why she was still on the property when I was there. And basically just wanted Sheila, don't come back, don't come back again. Don't, live your life, quit living in this.
Yes, because it's dark and there's a whole cloud over that town.
Yes.
Like you said.
Big time.
It's deep.
Yeah.
And it's dark. But you know what? There can be there might be some closure in this, maybe a little bit, or there may be other people who can concur some of these facts. Yeah. And I truly wish for everybody to be able to move on and stay safe.
Right.
All of us.
Yes.
I agree. Yay. Kat, thank you so much again for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And Donna, it's really nice to meet you. I think that the work that you did is pretty amazing.
Oh, thank you. It's very nice to meet you.
And so, yeah.
Thank you, Kat. We'll be talking soon. Thank
All right,
you.
honey.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night. Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Wow. Let me close this out. Take that down. Well, Dee, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad I could be here.
Oh, yeah, it's a pleasure. Old times, girl.
I know.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. Would you all please give my show a like? And for those who are new to the show, if you would please subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate it. And also, I want to thank everyone for watching, and my channel has now reached over 700,000 views, and it's all because of you, and I'm very excited about that. So we will see you next Thursday, same time, with another guest and another topic. And we want to wish you a good evening.
Yes.
And have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday. Good night, everyone. Love you.
night.
Thanks. Good